Okay, I went to, this year, I went to a water, I think it was Hudson River Watershed Alliance in Sandy conference. And there is, it was PFAS and all sort of discussion, there was a guy there, and it occurred to me to ask him about bottled water.
Yeah.
Bottled water is not tested. So the solution for bad water is to use bottled water, and apparently it's not tested.
And your preaching to the choir.
I didn't know that. That was
Saying that for the
horrifying.
last 30 years.
If you want to have your well tested for anything other than bacteria, there's no place within range to do it. You have to cross
Oh, I thought there was
the
something in high, well, yeah, and also you have to put in the right input to get everything tested.
Years ago, we used to require every new water supply go to the county.
Yeah.
Because at that time they had a lab. And you actually had results. No more. It doesn't exist.
It's private, right?
I was thinking of putting it on the map, but I don't think we really have to. I just counted the number of roads that are, property use code for residential. And which ones the county says has, now there are about a dozen houses that he says don't have a water supply at all. And that obviously isn't right. Like there's one on which I'm going, yeah, there's a house there, it's not taken. So obviously the data is not perfect, but it gives us some idea. 500 versus 3,000.
We did that years ago, and there are some houses on dug wells.
Still a well, it should show up in the assessor's files as having a well,
Yes, dug wells.
What is a dug well?
as opposed to a
And,
real well.
And dug, it's probably
Shallow.
12 to 20
Shallow.
feet at the most.
It's in Berryville class.
No.
No.
That's in this case, sorry.
I have something for you for later. This is everything I got in my.
You have the new
So I can
paper
go through
already?
this?
What's that?
Still alive.
Yeah, I just picked it out of my mailbox.
I brought it, this is lemon raspberry loaf, I try to feed you every chance I get. Lemon raspberry loaf, I picked it up from Sam's, but I figured, I knew we were down a few people, so please help yourselves, knife and everything. Yay. Guess what, we can be heard on Zoom, so you can start the meeting whenever you want.
So one could call in from home?
Well, they can listen and watch, I just don't want, it's too much for me to do this direction wise, peruse.
What is the camera pointing in for that one?
Nothing, but that's what we're using for sound. So I'm just trying to get the sound to work, so it's like 5 different avenues of stop.
And I'm going to get on there just in case you
Oh.
wanna.
You really are my star students, you can do what I need to. My heart is so happy.
Wait, what happened?
I gave them these last week and said, come back with them.
And we did.
It never happens, but everybody did. My heart is so happy.
Water supply is tracked by site, not by parcel. So for example, a parcel at 1 Lefty Way has 12 buildings, sites, all with public water. Okay, now we know. All right, I'm looking for the link.
You want it?
Yep, we're good.
My agenda.
Stick it there for you.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the workshop meeting for the Woodstock Planning Board for May 29th, 2025. We do have a quorum. And the minutes for May 15th, if everybody's okay, we can accept them. All in favor of the minutes?
Second favor.
Good, all in favor?
I,
Okay, so what is on our agenda tonight is a review of the comp plan, which should be reviewed, every 5 or more years. It's been 7.
Pause 1 second. I did send really late the proposed fence law. We're just gonna look at really quick
Oh, the
tonight.
fence law,
Yeah, so
Right.
just, that's the update. It should be pretty simple and easy, but that's also in what I left you. So sorry to interrupt, keep going.
No problem. So, it's been 7 years, and I don't expect that we are going to make any changes that are going to take effect immediately. So it'll probably be 10 years before this comp plan gets updated. So if you've all had a chance to look at it, my first question is, what changes or what has changed or what do you think should change in the comp plan?
I think I would say I skimmed it, and I saw a lot of things that we have not done anything about that are still pursuing. And a few things that we have done something about, like complete streets, that we're worth doing. I don't see anything I would take out.
Take out, no. Now, I recognize that there's several committees, that are working on, obviously, some of these issues like housing and zoning. But, anyway, John, any ideas that you think have changed or should change?
You know, a substantial part of this going on, attendance is normal. So,
Can't hear you, John.
the what?
What did you say?
I said, always, every time we look at this, there's always a substantial part of it that has been not attended to. So I don't know. I guess the planning board just needs to set its priorities.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do with it? So,
I mean, I felt like I was reading something that was like 2025.
Yeah.
And I actually don't mean that in a negative way. I actually
There's
think,
still issues,
I
that's
think
what you're
that-
saying.
you can't just say, yep, we've solved climate change. That
Yeah,
control.
yeah.
Economic stuff is all taken care of, housing is all fine, you know.
Yeah, we've got places for the artists to
We have
live,
tons
and
of,
we've got.
we have tons of babies
communication
from
with
the
the arts
community, so we're not aging, you know, I mean, it's all just reality of everything around us that we can't control. We can just simply be aware of and be always, you know, trying to put it into more current language. I mean, obviously, I think numbers and, you know, bar graphs have to be readjusted because, you know, median age is changing.
Price of housing, for example.
COVID definitely had an effect on like the amount of empty houses versus then versus now. You know, I mean, housing affordability, and that's just, I mean, you know, I mean, anything you can always do to create affordable housing, you gotta do, but it's never gonna get enough, you know, it's a huge mountain, and, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be always working on it. Maybe it's too rough, maybe it needs to be a little bit more, the goals need to be smaller, like, you know, let's try to create 1% new affordable housing a year, you know, I mean, you know, just something that's reachable.
Well, you're talking about measurable outcomes, which is not in here, really.
I mean, keep in mind
The
that
data could be updated, that's worth doing.
every case we get, other than the normal one, all the cases we get basically have to conform to the comp plan. I mean, that's the first question that you fill out when you make an application, you know, does this conform to the comp plan? So,
And that's significant because this, I think wasn't this the first adopted comp plan like years ago? It
It's
was
50
adopted,
years or something.
No.
Right, there was one 60 years.
Oh, there was, yeah.
So that was significant.
so as Judy pointed out, some of the things we have, you know, gotten into and improved. One is the scenic overlay.
Mhm.
We did a lot of work on that, and that is one of the comp plans.
Yeah, that sounded like it was a new thing here, that was like, oh, we should actually.
And we have a
And we
complete
have some
streets committee working on the things that they talk about, although it's a long way from where they want it to be, but there are people working on it.
So my
We've
biggest,
got a zoning update that never gets.
yeah,
Right.
my biggest question is what's considered a build-out analysis.
Is this a workshop?
It is.
I looked at what they have in here,
I
and
mean,
I would love to know.
I want a
what it is.
workshop, something.
School of the Arts.
I mean, that if it's just
Wait,
rough
wait,
numbers,
wait.
dividing the amount of land in a parcel by the zoning.
It has to go to building before it comes to us.
That's what I said to the architect, and he said, no, you go there, and I just did all this, so I'm just appeasing the architect.
I'll talk to you outside, come on, you
Right,
guys
sorry.
continue.
Sorry, thank you.
I think, you know, I'm gonna talk to you later about
See you soon.
my class thing, okay?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so the numbers that they're showing here back when they did this, 2018, they're showing like 3,000 something homes with what we have right now.
So
And
that,
so if
that
you're
agrees with what the assessment said, pretty much, 3,000.
3,030 or whatever.
3,500, give or take.
So, given that we have quite a bit of land that can still be developed, one would assume we could easily double that, and the question is, in how long?
Actually,
And I asked the building department a couple months ago, how many new homes applications, building applications they got for the year? They was only 3. 3 is what they gave me.
well, they would
Correct.
know.
I mean, that's what puts,
Wait, 3 new home applications?
3 brand new homes were approved last year.
For what?
Yeah, we asked a couple months ago. I think there's more now, but at that point there
Right,
was, yeah.
But even at that rate, if you only did 5 a year, it would take
And they're mostly second homes, great big money homes. They're not affordable housing.
right.
They're not even sort of in your middle of the road housing.
That's what the comp plan says, that everything's going for big houses on big lots.
Yes, I read that part. What I see on the build out page is just raw math, and I could probably do it, although I don't particularly volunteer to do it. Somebody who is paid to do it should do it, but it's not difficult, it's just taking the numbers and running them.
So my example, and of course we can't talk about cases, but just theoretically, my example is if we had a big case before us, like over in Zena Woods, and which is 700 acres, which if you did the total build out,
We could do that, that's not hard.
you're talking, I mean, they're alone, you're talking, close to 1,000 units.
I don't think so. You have to take off the wetlands, you have to take off the.
Yeah, but they could, under today's code, they can build to the max that we would permit, which is if they do cluster housing, if they do apartments.
Sure.
So the question is, my point is that this development alone, in 3 years, could be more housing than we're projecting for years to come.
So what's your point?
That if the comp plan asks us to review the whole situation, then in that particular case, it's a question of traffic. Can
Oh, for sure.
that road, the Highwoods Road, take that much traffic across that bridge?
No.
And you wouldn't think so.
And Saukville,
Yeah.
And what? Sorry.
Saukville is.
And the elephant in the room is the town of Woodstock.
The elephants of Woodstock, 500 acres, but the.
No. But the injection of the town of Ulster and the fact that they didn't even mention the town of Woodstock in their declaration, where do we go?
Well, this is my point, it's a little off the subject here, but the town of Ulster saying they want to be lead agency because the majority of the building, all the building is in the town of Ulster. But they can't get there without going through Woodstock.
Correct.
And all services would have to come through Woodstock.
Which has a tax revenue from it.
And here's the next problem we have, and this is what faces, relates to the comp plan. They have 700 acres, they're talking about developing 100 acres right now. And when we say, well, we want to be the lead agency because 500 of those acres is in Woodstock, they're going to say we have no plans to develop that. And
Irrelevant.
that's my
I
point.
agree.
We're a planning board, so we have to plan on that.
Yes.
What their lawyer is gonna say to us, we're not applying for anything there.
But that's irrelevant. We don't care what they're applying for. We have to look at the whole picture.
Because there's only one road that you
Yeah,
can link to.
exactly.
And the road that they are proposing to build violates our zoning already because it's too long.
So that's why I suggested, and I still will, I will in front of them, that they put a bridge across the Saukville. Now, look, you know where the dam is across the reservoir there?
Yeah.
There's an old dam right there. That goes, they have to get a few feet from the land belongs to the city of Kingston, the water department. But they could get a road right across there, put a bridge, right, and that would service to 700 acres. And make everybody happy, all the residents in that area.
And the county may not want that much traffic on Sauk Hill Road either.
But they're gonna get it anyway.
So they're gonna figure that out, that's what they people not.
They're gonna get it anyway.
How does the town of Woodstock deal with the traffic?
Well, that's one of our immediate concerns.
Yes.
The impact on our CEA being another one.
So that's, the total concept of a build-out analysis is for us, the planning board, to, I guess, hire professionals to do, traffic counts and see what these roads can take and can't take. I mean, I know Glasgow Turnpike is maxed out. I mean, you can't, I mean, luckily there's no more lands to build,
Is our traffic consultant gonna give us that for?
but not for free, that's for sure. We'd have to hire them
I thought we already had said we wanted.
oh, for that,
We said we have
for
to.
Xenia,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanna do a build-out analysis just as a kind of, what would it be like exercise on the Xena development property? That is an easy thing to do. And we could get a pretty good sense of, 2 cars per house, kind of, how many lots you could have, subtracting the wetlands and the water courses and we can do that. That's a doable, not a difficult thing to do.
there's not that many big lots left, but there are some. There's some that there are hundreds of acres that could be developed.
That are not conserved yet.
That would impact traffic incredibly.
Yep.
And so the question is, does the town need to look at that far in the future? Or do we just bump along year by year and the traffic gets worse and then, what do you say, like we didn't figure that?
When I look at this and they talk about having committees that are supposed to be looking down the road on conservation and on housing, we don't have that, and that's what we need. What would this place look like in 50 years if it was well planned?
That's my point.
Can I make one suggestion? There's the NRI, the Natural Resources Inventory, and all of that work. So Ingrid Heckel at DEC might be interested, it might be interesting to ask her if there's stuff from that they can extrapolate to tell you, like, it tells you how much has been conserved of land in the total.
I've got that on maps, Max.
No, I know, I'm just saying.
We know exactly what's conserved and what's.
Right, but I'm just saying, there may be a way to take some of the data there and calculate some of the things that you want to figure out also from that data.
I'm trying to understand what we want to have at the end of that. Do we want percentages? Do we want numbers? What do we want?
Part of what makes it complicated is what's being presented by some of these committees, which is to increase the population by allowing ADUs on every property and so on. So now, you're not just saying how many lots.
It's already allowed, but people
You're
aren't
saying
doing it.
how many dwellings did you permit?
But it's already allowed and people aren't building them. 6% of private houses in Woodstock have an ADU. What percentage of those are
6% of what?
of private homes in Woodstock have ADUs on the property now? Maybe it's a few more, because a few have been added like mine. But when I ran the numbers, it was 6%.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
But it's
Most
always been
people are not
permitted.
doing it, and how many of those are short-term rentals? I don't know, probably a fair number. And some of them are empty. I'm just talking about what the assessing data says about houses that have accessory apartments or accessory dwellings on the property. But the current law is anybody can do.
Oh, yeah, anybody,
And I would
actually, you can
guess-
have 2 homes on a property. But you can also have accessory buildings on a property. But the question is, how much more population can the town handle with present infrastructure? And what could you possibly do to fix it? And you can't widen any of these roads, they're just old cow paths that got widened as far as they can. And it's all private land on either side. So I don't know, you can improve these roads anymore.
So you,
You can do anything with money, Peter.
Huh?
You can do anything.
they
with money.
hired, some committee hired some firm to look at potential housing and where it could be. I don't know if do you guys know anything about this? Do you
Well,
know anything about this? They're working-
that engineering study is for town-owned land
Yes,
and where it could be built.
okay, there you go.
And they
That's-
concluded that the thing that is actually practical is the Mountain View parking lot. And not much
And
else.
in this, they talked of like parking and, more parking.
They
I
think-
just put it out there like
They
there.
think they could lose any parking if the parking was designed properly.
This is the closest thing I've seen to a build out come out of anything, is what I guess, where I'm trying to go.
So I missed one. What would the comment regarding Mountain View parking lot?
the engineers that the town hired to look at town-owned land that could accommodate multiple housing, affordable
And
housing.
that was one of them?
That's the only practical one.
There were three of
Yeah.
them. They're actually looking at the other one, in Xena.
Yeah.
What's it, you mean,
The
they're
one on
looking at
Taylor
that
Highwoods, but
area right
Yeah,
behind
but-
Colony, that, in that parking lot, was that?
Yeah.
No,
That was,
not that one.
I think that was a third option.
That was
This is
one,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, the one, it was purchased while I was supervisor, in fact, but we went after it because we needed parking, not because we needed additional development for the town for housing.
However, the engineers say that of the parcels that are available,
They are advisory.
I know, I'm just telling you what they said, but they said that Mountain View parking lot is not used efficiently. And if it was striped properly and used efficiently, you wouldn't lose parking and you would still have room for, not a big development probably, dozen or so apartments maybe?
I was only bringing this up because it's the first that I've seen, we've been asking for a build out.
But
But this came from a committee and
But
not,
that's
not
just-
really affiliated, I guess.
But that's just town-owned land.
Yes.
And the question Peter is asking is
Is
also is
whole.
town-owned land.
Absolutely, I know what, yes, I'm just,
When it comes to traffic, you know, you can look around at other towns, and New Paltz is interesting, because they had a study, I don't know if you all heard of New Paltz study, but it's impossible. And they did a study about 4 years ago, a traffic study to solve the problem,
It can't be
No
solved.
solution.
It can't be solved.
can't resolve it. And I don't know that Woodstock can either, all I can tell you is that all the side roads now, like Gary Hill, are getting tons of traffic because people are trying to avoid town.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of this traffic that's trying to get around town. And, you know, I don't know.
You can do anything with money, and you know that. Really, I mean, you look at Woodstock, it's, what is it, 68.8 square miles, which just happens to be the same size as the island of Manhattan.
Mhm.
You know, you
And
gotta
they
put
built
in
up.
perspective. What?
They built up and they made subways.
Yeah, right, but first they built this way, and then they went that way.
True.
But, you know, that's the difference and stuff.
Well, so the question is, what can you do to curtail development, or do you want to?
Well, you gotta-
I mean, do we figure, well, this is a build out, we can only take another 6,000 homes and that's it?
I wouldn't use the word curtail, I would use the word control,
Mhm.
shape. Because curtail is gonna lead you to a big fat lawsuit. That's it, that's all it's gonna do. So, I mean, yes, there are limits, of course, and those limits are gonna be by how you shape it.
I agree, John, and one of the points is some of the big lots available are in the mountains. Big 100 acre, 200 acre lots.
Absolutely true.
So you gotta get those mountain roads, and if we start restricting this, right now, they're getting away with it because the roads are already there, little dirt roads are going up the mountain, they say, oh, I already got a road. Well, if we're gonna restrict the mountain development, we're gonna have to get more serious about permitting those roads. I mean, I'll give you another example, look at McDaniel Road, I was just up there because it collapsed. It fell down the hill. And that's because of all the traffic that's going on, that's being developed on that, on Guardian Mountain, up the side of Guardian Mountain, all the way up in there. Huge, you know,
Although there's a lot of conservation of land up there too, it's funny.
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't answer your question though about getting a traffic consultant to look at the scenery. I don't think he ever really, we looked at the intersection of Eastwood Lane and Highwood Road. I don't think we looked at that intersection, he did, I didn't see anything in his report, he was mostly talking about the length of Eastwood Drive without a turnaround.
yeah, I think you kind of stuck to zoom in.
However, the town code says that that kind of road is limited to 2,000 feet. I looked, it is. That is current code.
Well, while we're on the subject, and it's getting off the comp plan subject for a second, but I guess it's relevant.
I don't know what question we're trying to answer, and that's the thing that I'm struggling with.
Oh, as far as the comp plan?
Yeah.
What suggestions should the planning board give the town board that we think should be incorporated
I'll tell you
into
what
a
I think.
revised comp plan?
What is in there now should be implemented. That's my answer to the question.
But isn't it adopted, it's already been adopted by the
Yes,
town board?
but it
That's
hasn't
why
been
those-
implemented.
No, but that's why those committees have started to exist.
Yeah, some of
too.
them exist, but not all of them.
Right.
There are things like enforcement.
I mean, they're major points of the arts and conservation of environmentally sensitive areas.
Most of the things that they suggest in terms of the arts and conservation haven't happened yet. And, cell service out in the mountains. There are lots of things in here that are very worthwhile doing, and they haven't happened yet. And before anybody starts talking about changing it, they don't look at what's in there that hasn't been done yet and move on that stuff.
So, I know we won't solve it tonight, but I guess the answer to the question is, in effect, is to be able to get a letter to the town board from us. And is that basically what?
That is what I would
what we're gonna
suggest that we say, that it is a good plan, that it is forward-looking, that some things in it have begun to be, what the hell is that?
Fire sign.
That some things in it have begun to be implemented, and more things should be implemented. Most of the arts things have not happened, most of the housing things have not happened. The infrastructure stuff, to the extent that the state is doing it, things are happening, but things that are under the town's control, not much. You don't even have
Do you
parking
want,
lots that don't have big potholes in them.
well, I think that's important too, what Peter said, exactly, like, where, yeah.
But if we say, as simply as to say, it was a good plan when it was written, and it is still a good plan, and most of it has not been implemented yet.
Are you willing to start this draft for us to look over?
Okay.
Yes.
As part of that, though, it has to be, I think, some future series of meetings between this board and the town board.
Okay,
There is a difference of opinion, let's put it that way, between the two boards. And
in what particular,
planning, zoning, I mean, have you ever heard those words even come out of any of these candidates that we have running for the fall? No.
that meeting is going to be on Saturday morning, and they will be asked that question. It's going to be about housing and zoning, it's coming up on Saturday.
What is Saturday?
It is one of the Democratic Committee town forums. We've
Candidate.
had two so far.
We receive official notice of that meeting?
Everybody, it's all over. You didn't get it in your email?
Obviously not.
Well,
It's this Saturday, I thought it was.
we had two already. We had an introduction where people made their general
Yeah.
statement.
If you send me
We
an
have a
email,
water supply.
I'll send it to all of you.
I'm
I
amazed.
think it's
that you
at
guys-
10:30.
I mean, I did get an email from the two
10:30
contenders
in the
for
morning.
town board, the town supervisor, who both said that they're having a meeting to hear from.
If you guys are not registered Democrats, maybe you can get it. But it seems to me it's all over town. It's in the newspaper
Yeah.
with the wrong time.
Other people
It's not
exist
just-
besides registered.
It is, but
Oh, I
each
know,
one
but
has
the
the wrong
Democratic-
time.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
actually.
broken up, so that's why I do stuff.
I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Okay, so that's kind of our consensus to tell the board that we think they ought to implement more of what's in the existing comp plan.
Well, I mean, the language in here is just, is rather vague, so it's not like, are we saying things like we need to, I'll approve a plan for the sidewalks in town, are we doing, are there specific things like that?
Well-
Everything's just kind of more like, oh, we should,
Well, the sidewalks, the town itself are 212, which is state highways, so we don't have much to say about
so
that.
that's where it all.
But I think complete
Sidewalks
streets.
are not the state.
No, but I think
You know,
complete streets works on that too. I think that, to my understanding of the process though, was that there was a, committee that created this.
Mhm.
That had to be, then they gave the report, it got adopted by the town board, and then these committees were created, and the two, the highest priorities were housing and then open space, or those are the things that people value, I guess, the most.
They still do.
And so the housing committees were, that's what Deborah Dewan was doing years ago, it started like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And then it morphed into this other one, this other committee, which is Catherine Teagan and John Huber. And
Yes,
those
the
are the
housing
ones that have found, well, but they had different names, the two entities. But that all was spawned out of this, and complete streets, and I don't know what else. But to your question about what is the actual amount of what had happened in this town, I don't think anybody contemplates that, and I don't know, it seems like such an important planning tool, I don't know that they contemplate it anywhere in the United States. I mean, I'm sure people do, but like,
No,
why don't they?
I think they do. I think that any urban area, any area like, New Jersey, Florida, all that, they are always, putting money in a budget to study like, okay, if our population increases by 20%, or the town next to us increases by 20%, what is that going to do to our bridges? What's that going to do to our
We'll be out of water.
water, all that. And so I think if that's a concern, if we do think there's a potential for that jump of a population, I think we can ask for it in our budget that there's some type of a study done. I'm sure there are firms that do this, that literally will go through all the bridges right around Woodstock, all the roads right around Woodstock, and give you an impact statement of like the amount of traffic increase, including truck, including delivery. And delivery is a huge thing that's already happened. We're already too late on that. We're already fixing bridges that are falling down. And, that's something that could be put in the budget. And it probably should be.
That's one of the things in the comp plan, saying that the town should get more grants for that kind of work.
Yeah, and it's not just, the cars driving through, it's all the trucks and delivery and all that. I mean, I can't look out my window without seeing a FedEx or a UPS truck going by.
Amazon.
The other thing that was brought up in the comp plan, in the making of the comp plan, is what happens when events occur, major events affecting our housing and our demand for housing. 9/11 was one, but global warming might be, sea level rise. It could be events that all of a sudden make this a big destination and catch us off guard.
I don't know why it's not sending it to everybody.
We did that,
It must be
like,
something
remember we
housekeeping.
discussed like emergencies like storms
Emergency.
and electric, and I think we got a response to that even
No.
though we asked.
Would the county be doing something like that, like Ulster County, or something like that? Would that be something that
Well, I can think of it as like the Amber alerts, or like, every once in a while, but I mean, that's few and far between, and we were talking much more local, I mean, we discussed that.
Yeah, when
quite
the
a bit.
power goes out and
Or
can't
a
get
storm,
anybody.
and a tree is down and we can't get, we did talk about that.
The
I forgot to mention, the zoning committee also did all that work, and it's now laid in with a consultant.
You mean the Housing Oversight Task Force?
No,
I was a
I mean
member?
the zoning committee trying to change the
DRC.
zoning code. And that's just, I think it's a political issue, so it hasn't been.
It's waiting until the election and then they'll probably pick it up again.
With the alert system itself, sorry to interrupt.
No, we're not talking about the
Zoning.
alert system, we're talking about the zoning, at least I think we were.
Yes, you're correct, that's where we were.
Okay, so it's John, Jeannie, Braden, James, Peter,
Oh, thank you.
me. Is there anybody else? Am I missing anyone?
7 total, you got 6. Jeannie, Jennifer, Drew,
Jeannie, Ray,
Jennifer,
Jennifer.
I'll check it. Thank you.
Okay. I am sending you the Dear Democrats message that has all the information about the forums, and the first 2 are available online. The videos are on the Woodstock Democratic webpage. And the links are in what I just sent you. And I don't know why you didn't get them. We are broadcasting it, we being the town Democrats, are broadcasting it everywhere we can figure out how.
Thank you.
So if you're interested in
So
housing
anyways,
and
I
the stuff
guess
that the candidates
Peter's
have to
point-
say, come Saturday morning.
The only thing I'm seeing missing here, which is something significant, is the whole idea of what is possible to come that we don't know, and what is affecting us for population growth in areas near us, or our own population, or, you know, development, and how that affects our infrastructure, and how, I mean, we always just pay attention to schools, like, oh, we're gonna get more school kids, or what, but it's like, you know, infrastructure and all that.
And flooding and wildfires.
The other thing that the plant, they
That's sort of a climate change,
is recreation spaces. And I have an issue with that. It seems to me that I've looked at our recreation spaces, and I look at the, Andy Lee Field a lot, especially on Sundays. And I found 7 guys playing softball and 2 parents with 2 kids on the swings. That's it. And they're talking about putting $4 million into tennis court. I don't follow.
My crystal ball says that's not gonna fly.
No, and the problem is that most large homes and homeowners here have their own entertainment area. Yeah, they have their own tennis court.
Or they join this, or they join the
They have their own swimming pool.
Tennis and swimming pool.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think the public spaces that are more used are the remote properties, you know, the,
Dog park.
Oh, I get asked for that every time I ask someone to put their dog on a leash.
Overlook trail, and things like that.
Public trail, yeah.
Those, I mean, those are the things that people use, I think, you know, I agree with you.
But parks, you know, we have this fee that we keep charging, you know, for recreation fee every time we do a subdivision to buy land, I guess, for parks. But I just don't see that there's any demand for it. I don't know. What do you think, John? We just don't have that many kids.
Well,
The schools are
especially
closed.
they're moving the- moving the school
You know how many
down.
schools
No, but
left?
that grew out of the youth center needing to be refurbished, and that there are 100 kids roughly that are there, you know, use it a bit. And then it went big.
I mean, the change rooms, bathrooms, but the swimming pool there is exactly the way it was when I was there, 6 years old. It hasn't painted it since then.
That's not a good.
I mean, really. Couldn't they just
John,
fix
did
the
you know he was
bathrooms
gonna
there?
piggyback off your comments?
Can I have a thing?
Of course you
I
can.
mean, the pool is for kids. You don't need an Olympic-sized heated indoor pool. It's for kids in the summer.
Lots of people would like to have a pool.
It should not be for kids, the pool should be for everybody.
Yes. It should be. I would love a place to swim here.
If we look at what the average age is in this town, we need an adult facility more than we need another kid facility.
Well, if you keep building the mansions, they have their own pools.
Yeah, exactly.
Invite me over.
Is this an open discussion?
So,
Is this an open discussion? Can I?
She's asking if it's an open discussion.
sure, ma'am.
Comment? I don't agree with you at all. Not every house has a pool, and if you want to invite more people who cannot afford a big mansion, they don't have pools. And I don't know how many pools there are in Woodstock, but there's certainly plenty of people, I would, who would come and use
Me
a
too,
decent outdoor pool.
me too.
And I think also, the taxes are high, really high. And I mean, I don't know comparatively, but it's a lot of money for me. And what do I get from the town except more big houses? I would love to have a community facility for adults.
Can I
Now, it
agree?
doesn't have to be $30 million, it doesn't have to be indoor and outdoor, but something reasonable, that's attractive and usable.
well, the thing is that examples that we have are like, Olive and, they just built 2 pools. They can't afford to keep the pool going. They can't afford these pools. They just did one down, anyway, down the road a bit. And it was a big thing to try to get the financing to fix the pool. And the one in Olive, they can't afford to maintain it. So it's a big expensive proposition,
Can I just have your name,
Sylvia,
but,
last name?
Levittown.
Thank you.
but I certainly appreciate your input.
I mean, I think the words that she said was reasonable, which is, you know, is the most sensible one. It is,
I
Yeah.
can't hear you.
reasonable is the most sensible idea for this, that, I think the idea of an indoor and an outdoor pool, whatever I saw on the plans at one point, kind of knocked me over too. I was sort of like, I've never lived in that town. I've lived in a lot of towns in my life. I was like, whoa, what town is this? So I think the idea of a seasonal outdoor pool maybe, or something like that, it'd be wonderful. You know, I agree. Or maybe it's an indoor pool, it's open all year long.
Oh, we have a pool if it was run in a way that would make it available to adults.
Rosendale is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I wrote it, I should have shown you, I knew where you were going.
Well, that's a good point,
And also, can I just, there was a youth center, one of the initial, I think it was the second youth center, meeting that we had at the inception of that. The Christopheros mentioned that they really do that maintenance. That field is maintained by the Christopheros. So when they go up and paint it, and then our town goes and mows, they've got to paint it again. That's at their expense. So that's what Vince and crew get to pay out of their pockets. So let's face it there too.
It affects the planning board, as I said, because whenever we do a subdivision, whenever we create a new lot, we're supposed to take a certain amount of money, it used to be $100
It's 1,000 a lot.
to put into parks and recreation. Well, at that rate, you wouldn't even be able to buy 10 square foot of property around here. We jumped it up to 1,000, but it's still minuscule. I mean,
And this planning board, understands that we do have open housing, who holds it, and, there's housing that's kind of like held hostage. I've seen folks, labeling certain things as hotels, it's not. You can find it in minutes, these minutes are disappearing as we speak while we're perhaps moving into a new website, we don't know. While we're under open discussion.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
There's a property on Streamside. I came across it accidentally. I was looking, somebody accidentally spaced something wrong in the meeting minutes at one point. And I just came across something that's labeled as, it was a burned down building, and it's like the nephew of the homeowner. It was 4 units, now it's 3, and now it's a hotel. It's on Streamside, I don't know, but I didn't even have time, I was looking for something else for the meeting that night. It's a hotel now.
Maybe
It's not
that's
a
something
hotel.
you mentioned to the building department.
Oh, I don't look the other way, I don't know, I've already been subject to that. That's why I live where I live now. Because I was polite. I just came more.
Well, I will draft something that basically says,
Thanks.
it's a good plan and it ought to be implemented, and some things have begun, but there's a lot left to do. If that's an acceptable position for us to take, I think it's my opinion.
And how about, looking to the future, possibly within our budget, to like really dig down, as we've been asking for years, build out plan. I mean, we can go further, deeper later, but to at least mention it, if you want.
What I think is under the surface of the question of build-out plan is, if a build-out plan is just, how many units could you build if you built everything you could possibly build?
Right.
That's just math, but that's not planning. We do not have an open space plan, which we were supposed to have, we don't. I think there's mention of it as something a committee ought to be doing.
There was, in the comp plan.
We don't have an open space plan. We have a housing committee, and they're really working hard at thinking about things, and they got the family of Woodstock co-share thing to happen. I would love, speaking entirely as the owner of an accessory apartment that is rented below market, significantly below market, to have a tax rebate for offering affordable housing.
I think that's.
But I can't go to the town board and ask, because I have a personal incentive in it, and I'm on this board, so I can't ask that question, but the housing
But I
committee
think
might.
that was my suggestion, I agree with you,
I think the housing committee is gonna,
I think it's tax incentive for
so
that.
that people have more than just goodwill reason to do it. I spent
Well, they
a
should
lot of
look at
money
tax
making that
incentive,
apartment
it's
happen.
You should be rewarded for that.
Especially with section 8 being probably close forever.
So in the community action plan, one of the things they mentioned, and we have to use it when we do a lot of our applications, is community character. And we had a whole meeting on that one. And so when we get an application, we're supposed to say, does that fit into the community character? And so, do we apply that to huge things, like Zenith?
Please define community character.
That's
We
always
tried.
been the problem.
That's why we tried.
That's always been the
tried.
problem. Maybe wrestle with that
Few
with the
meetings.
oversight task force too.
Few
I
trainings.
mean, the character keeps changing, I guess.
No, it basically doesn't. I mean, it's a rural town whose economy is driven primarily by tourism. That has a significant part of the housing stock tied up in summer and weekend housing by people who live downstate. And another significant part of what could have been affordable housing tied up in short-term rentals. And that's what we've been for a long time, and we're just more so.
But you could also add that the community character, that what came out of this was that it's a priority to the folks that land be preserved and that housing be.
Well, three things, several things, that land be preserved, that the artistic component of the town be supported,
Right.
which partly means affordable housing for artists, because not everybody has made a big career. Things like the noise ordinance have to do with that also. And some things like the noise ordinance, you've got two different goals that are really in conflict with each other. Because people who want it to be a rural, quiet town and people who want it to have rock bands both have legitimate arguments that that's what this town has always been.
One of the other big changes, like we said, events gonna change things. One of the big changes is working from home. You have a lot of people now that used
Well,
to
it's always true, but it's truer. It's not just
do it now,
artists
big
anymore.
time.
It's not just artists anymore. I'm having trouble getting homeowners
So
insurance.
you're getting people that
I
used
have
to work in the
businesses in
city because that's where they work, they're now moving up here because they can work at all.
Right. Well, I mean, the question is, Peter, if that is a change and is, how that affects the plan.
Well, I think that's something that has to be updated on this thing, because I think in 2018 versus now,
Uh-huh.
there's,
Okay,
there's a difference in like, all these bar graphs showing vacant homes and stuff are not quite as that number anymore. There's, you know, there is a difference.
they're
And
hard to know.
you see it in, well, yeah,
I don't
I
even know
see
how
it,
you count that.
well, I see it in town.
I know, but how do you actually get
There's
the
a lot more
statistics?
people like during the year that are never were there before. So
Yeah.
there's something different going on with that.
So you know what, it seems to me, if points like that I hadn't thought of, if you send me an email with your thoughts about the things that are not, that have changed, that need to be incorporated. Clearly, that is one. The growth in the number of people who are working from homes is a change. I think the aging of the population
Oh, yes,
since this came out
definitely.
is a change.
That has to be updated.
All right, so we're pretty good on that, Melissa, we.
I think so.
If you guys send me notes of the things that occur to you that aren't in there that should be in there, I'll draft the letter.
I think that's good. We do have a meeting next week, so we don't get to it in a week. We'll work into it, but no, I think this conversation was exactly what we were looking for.
I wanna change the subject a little bit to, something that I think we have to address, which is this, asking to be lead agency,
Yep,
because there's a shot clock going.
yep. We
And we
didn't
don't
get
know
it
exactly
until the
when they-
27th, we didn't get it until the 27th.
Well,
And
when
they
did it
filed it on
start?
the 13th. So the question is, when did it start? Because if it starts when they filed it, the 11th is the deadline. If it starts when we got it, that's another 2 weeks.
You saw that I emailed
Yeah,
John, yeah.
so we need to ask John
Yep.
to get his.
So that's what I was trying to say. Judy and I today talked a
And the
little bit.
next question is, the land board here, are you all in agreement to ask to be lead agency?
Absolutely.
And of course, you understand the reason for it is that if two of us has to be lead agency, then the DEC has to get involved, which takes it out of our hands.
And, you know,
That's good reason.
if we assume that they would make an intelligent decision about it, everybody will live with it.
But they're gonna argue, as I said before, that all the developments in the also. But we have to argue as a planning board that the rest of the 700 acres is gonna enter through Woodstock.
Oh, I think it's more than that. That is one of them. Another is that what they propose to do violates our zoning already and will impact our CEA.
Well, these are good points that we have to get to John.
So,
And we will, our town will have to support the emergency services and will not get any taxes.
Correct, absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. That's a major, that's a
No, these
major.
are valid things. I can-
Major issue.
so I'm hoping that we can, you and I will touch base with John and then we'll figure out to move forward or have him draft something immediately. for
So my
us
question
for
is-
response.
In order to declare ourselves lead agency, do we have to do it in a meeting where they're present, or can we do it in our own?
Well, they did the meeting where we weren't present.
Who's president?
The Xena development people?
Oh,
Do they have to be at the board, we have to have a meeting with them, because the timing might not work or something?
that's a very interesting question.
That is a very interesting question.
I
This
thought
is
we'll
so
figure that out.
different because
I've never heard of that one before.
there's so many people
I don't know if
involved.
it's true.
Yeah, I don't
He's
know.
asking
That's
a
why we
question,
really
he's
need
not
John
saying
on this.
anything.
This isn't typical solar array in the mountain, you know, I mean, like, oh, sign off, and what we received isn't really typical of what we received either. Yeah, so there's a John question.
I mean, it's an end run, we know that. This Xena development came to us before with a huge project, and there was so much uproar, they said, no more, we're not gonna do that, we're gonna do this. Well, of course they're gonna do that. Once they get the road approved, then they're gonna come right back to us with the 500 acres.
Maybe not.
Of course they are, I mean, you know, they didn't buy it, they just sit on it.
That's true.
They spent millions of dollars for that land. And you asked them straight up, they don't wanna develop, good, just make it conservation, is that okay?
Yeah.
No, you can go for that.
The land conservancy.
You wanna put it in conservation, then we're done deal, but they're not gonna do that. And so, as a planning board, we have to say that 700 acres of development is gonna be coming through Woodstock. Unless you put a bridge across the creek.
Well, if Butch and I were correct in our understanding of the law, they will have to have a second road anyway.
Well, our traffic consultant is dealing with their guys, and they're saying that to put sprinklers in the buildings, they may not.
That
Oh,
is,
that's one of the
That's
things
correct.
we found, yes.
that's
So they can-
correct,
they
if
can
there's
end run
sprinklers in
around
every
that, too.
building. Yeah.
And the question is gonna be, can we take a 700 acre development and dump it onto the Xena Highwood Road at that intersection? I mean, if you look at that intersection, I think, because it's a hill and the road comes out on a curve, I just don't see it, so.
Bad enough with 30 houses.
It's not taking into account the rest of Software Road, which is this narrow, windy road. But
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Any way they do
The
it,
amount
it's
of
bad.
accidents on that road is gonna be a nightmare.
I mean, they actually have,
It's bad.
they have 3 lots in the town of Walton, only one they're proposing to develop. They own 3 more lots. And all the rest of that land belongs to the sportsman's club, all the way out to the other road, so they could get a road through there if they want to. My feeling is if they're saying all the development is in Ulster, they could get to it from Ulster.
I don't think they
That's
own,
that's the way I said.
I don't think they own anything else in it.
Yeah, they have 2 other lots, 3 other lots in Ulster. They're all adjoining each other. One's a 27 acre lot, one's a 7 acre lot. But they have more land they can develop in Ulster.
He wants to stop them from buying stuff from the sportsman.
Exactly, because Portland has about 1,000 acres over there.
Last I heard, they didn't want to sell any.
They have 400 acres, but they had issues with them, remember that?
They don't want
They don't
them to do
They
it.
have to be, what, 100, how many feet away? 500 feet from a dwelling, and so where they were citing the dwellings in
That's if
Ulster.
they use it for what they wanted to use it for, but if they sell it,
They can build their own.
Well, initially, that club has not been
Yeah,
friendly to them, that might even change it, I don't know.
but then it wouldn't be our problem if they had another way to get
you
it out.
know, friendly $100 bills,
I wasn't.
stacks of them.
I
I'm
think
not,
they
I'm not
want,
replying.
they want the access to this stuff.
Yeah,
The idea of it being like, oh, buy your mansion
yeah.
in Ulster is not as interesting as buying Woodstock and stuff.
So what's gonna happen if they get approval of this developing the Eastwood Drive to the full length, then when they come to 500 acres, they're in. They don't need any more permission from anybody.
Right.
Our only stop sign is right now.
Now let's figure out if we have to meet with them or not, or just
And I don't, obviously you can't stop them, they own the land, they have the right to develop it, you can't stop them from developing it. And as John said, all you can do is try to control it or
Manage it.
manage it.
I don't think we are obligated to give them permission to do that wrong.
Well, it's up to the lawyers at that point.
Yeah.
I mean,
If they're violating our zoning, which I think they are, we're not obligated to give them permission to violate our zoning.
it's not the first time that lands outside of Woodstock only have access to Woodstock roads. There's other places like that, but not 700 acres that are trying to be developed. That's pretty major. They're talking about putting in their own sewer plants and stuff. If they do that, they can go to high densities,
Yeah. Exactly.
you know.
It's still our emergency services, it's still,
Yeah.
it's
So-
all our taxes.
All right, Melissa, so we're good on the comp plan.
Yes.
Drop me a note, I'll incorporate it. I'll try to remember what James said.
A few draft resolutions.
We got some
What do you say,
motions.
James, right now for me?
I probably probably.
Okay, send me an email. Send me an
I'll
email.
send you an
Did you have the next thing on it, April?
You don't want to read my writing.
Can you try?
You don't wanna read my writing.
So we got a couple of resolutions to approve, but we got a quorum here.
Sure, of course.
And I made it to rate one.
So we have a
I
resolution,
move.
you gonna do it,
Thanks,
I
Judy.
move we approve draft resolutions SUP 250675A for Keith and 25-0451A for Pisano Land and Coolidge and Pisano and Neon Lights 2 LLC.
Second,
I said.
Jane, John?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, did anybody vote for Ray Cliff?
I did.
I'm such a snooze. I actually sat and read a book for half an hour on the cliff looking at the view. It was so beautiful. Well, you said nobody's there, so.
No, that's why I was during the week. You
It's-
didn't text me? I didn't know what I was gonna do.
No, my car could actually make it go south.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I can't believe they turned down their house right
I know.
now. The house looks completely.
I made Butch come in and
Yeah,
like,
you what?
The house is completely fine. You could hire somebody to like replace the windows, you could siding, modify the kitchen, but it's like, it's tearing the whole thing
been
down.
there a while then, huh?
Doesn't look that old,
No.
it's like, I don't know. It's kind of.
Does it look like they can do what they wanna do?
Like,
Cool
all
and
the
everything?
stuff is sort of within that footprint.
Like John said, money, you can do anything.
Yeah, and trust me, on each side of them, all around them are other houses that all have like clear views looking out, but it's in terms of scenic overlay, it's all compromised for what that is. Already, so there's nothing-
All the rate pushers.
If anything, their house might be even more compliant because it'll be the right color.
because they're doing it right, they did it the
All the
right
right
way.
windows and all that, so.
Are you good with that? All
Public
right.
hearing? We don't need to bring it back, we'll just do schedule public hearing.
Yeah.
There's also potentially solar panels going in, which were in one of the plans, but it's all still within what they're there now, so
Okay.
it's perfect, yeah.
You got the letter from Butch, Woodstock
Yes.
State?
They did say something about the type of window they were gonna put, did they actually say, alter the plan to say they were gonna?
We can work that out during the public hearing.
Perfect, okay. That was only.
And I know that whole like, the slat should come, I mean, like, I looked at it more and I was like, okay, but we'll work that out then. Yep.
Yeah, they weren't gonna go for a glazing that was non-reflective, but it was pretty well tucked underneath and stuff.
Yeah, the only people who can see that house are in Hudson, so.
I did actually copy this just in case you guys wanted to tell me how to proceed.
With the Woodstock State?
Yep, it's in your little pile
Yeah,
of stuff.
I read Butch's thing,
Yeah, with the barn.
with the
With the
two
two,
trailers, the two boxes
Yeah.
with the roof over.
So-
I don't see how that, I just don't see how that is permissible, but.
But we have some very, very, like, neighbors who are really on top of us, so.
so what I said in my initial memo to Butch, because you know me, I'm always brainstorming, was potentially repaint them, put a fence around, like conditions that we can possibly do.
Right.
But again, a fence is only 4 foot,
Well,
you know?
I agree, absolutely agree, but the problem is that the original thing they were gonna do was a pole
It's a
barn
pole
over those two things. And now they just wanna sit the roof on top of those two things. So I don't think they're gonna put a fence around it if they can't even do a pole barn.
I know.
I don't know.
So, but he's saying it's basically it's legal to have those two structures.
He says it, what says it means code.
So, I mean, that's all we can say. I mean, I'm gonna go
Yeah,
drive. and take a look.
unfortunately, that's all, that's right.
Okay, so, do we wanna bring them back? What do we wanna do, guys?
Well,
If we bring them back, it's gonna be another ordeal for neighbors and all that.
Mhm. No matter what, if we just go to a public hearing, or if we just bring them back, either way, it's gonna be the same.
it's too bad the civic commission, civic design commission.
Isn't over
can't be
there?
Involved in that one, that would fix it.
Oh, yeah.
Be the first time I agree with them.
All right, why don't you take the next week and think about some ideas for this, that we could maybe use as conditions, and then we'll broach on it next week?
Yeah, I'm gonna drive by and try to.
Perfect.
Because, yeah,
Perfect.
I don't like to see.
I think that's a good
my
idea.
Kitchen window that I don't like either, so it's like, I just wanna see how
Right.
bad it is.
And, I feel like if we do throw a few things, if they don't do it, they can't have it, you know what I mean, like, so. We did try to get them to remove them initially,
310 Woodstock Estates Drive, that's the address.
3 to 10, yep.
I haven't been up to Redcliffe yet.
What's an easy drive? The driveway goes.
No, I just
The
haven't.
driveway goes right to
I
front of
have
the house.
not had time.
Yeah, I'll drive it on, take a look myself.
Perfect.
Go during the week when nobody's there. That's never happened.
I love it. I love
It was beautiful.
Alright,
I don't feel ever being invited back. So.
Do you happen to know what name they are doing business under these days?
Who?
Woodstock Estates, it used to be Woodstock
No,
Village.
the Xena guy.
Xena
Oh.
Development,
Xena Development.
Being in development.
Xena
They're
Development.
not showing up here as
Do you wanna-
anything other than that one.
Oh, yeah, you click on it all around there, it all says Xena Development.
Or click on the one and then just.
Yeah, see, the problem is I don't have, the most recent Ulster parcels I have is 2020. So I'll have to get the whole tax parcels to find them, which I might just do.
Do you want to end the meeting? Do you guys you good? See you next week.
Okay. See you next week. Yeah,
Can
we'll see
you-
each other very soon.
Please adjourn the meeting, make a motion.
Can you get me those SBLs?
Of course I can.
I motion to adjourn.
I can, yeah.
I'd like to see.
Second.
Adjourn.
Perfect.
All in favor?
Give me 5 seconds to do all this crazy.
No more tariffs.